Good evening, welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, March 9th, 2020. Have everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public announcements. Kevin?
Yes, I just want to say congratulations to the Abington High School basketball team on their 85-81 win over the Cape Cod Academy in the sectional final. And I want to wish them luck as they play Snowden International School of Boston in the Division IV state semifinals Tuesday, March 10th at 3:45 p.m. at the TD Garden. Tickets are available at the TD box office and online through Ticketmaster.
Jim?
I have nothing.
Ken?
Nope.
Tim?
I wasn't ready. You guys did that on purpose. BF Comedy and the Knights of Columbus will be presenting a comedy night on April 3rd, 2020. Doors open at 7. The show will start at 8:30. The headliner will be Steve Sweeney. Tickets will be available at the Knights of Columbus or online at brownpapertickets.com. Search BF Comedy, or you can call Bill at 781-915-4980.
Thank you, Tim.
I'm sorry?
When is that?
April 3rd.
Knights of Columbus. All right, I don't have any. Public comment?
Will I be able to speak on agenda item number 4 when you get to it?
I would think so.
You're Chairman.
Yes, Chief. Okay. I could have said no.
Yeah.
No. Wouldn't do that at all. Any other public comment? No? All right.
Is this something for public comment, or is that?
Is that the
Is that an agenda?
No.
Um,
Marty's gonna talk about that.
Matt,
I'm going to ask Marty to just give 5 minutes.
Okay.
What's going on locally with...
My copy. He should do it on public comment, I guess. It's not on the agenda.
all right, you want to do it under public comment?
Sure, I mean, it's not technically on the agenda, but on the other hand, it's more of a timely emergency type.
I think it's important.
Right.
Okay, with me.
He had one though.
Marty?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Take this one.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, timing.
Yeah.
I gave everybody a little handout of some things that I thought might be important to you. The latest update just came out today at 5 o'clock, and it was an increase in the number of presumptive cases from to 41 positive cases in Massachusetts. And that was the advisory that was just announced this afternoon. You guys all know we're in the middle of this coronavirus, COVID-19, which is the disease that is caused from this particular novel coronavirus. Novel in this instance just means when you hear new or novel coronavirus, it just means a new type of a coronaviruses. And coronaviruses are a group of viruses that cause respiratory tract infections. The famous ones are now this novel coronavirus, MERS, and SARS. But symptoms are usually like a common cold. If you go to my website, the health department's website, you will see these 2 forms on there, the CDC, what to do if you're sick, and what you need to know about the coronavirus 2019 and COVID-19. It's all on there. Also, put out some Town of Abington coronavirus information sheets. Those are all out there. We had a meeting today with Peter Schaefer and Felicia, the superintendent and assistant superintendent, to discuss a variety of scenarios in case of a student, a faculty member, or someone in direct care of a student tests positive or is presumptively positive for the coronavirus. There's also another meeting for emergency preparedness tomorrow that we'll be attending, just to stay abreast of local recommendations as much as we can. This is a situation that is rapidly evolving. So you can ask me a question today, and the answer could be something, and tomorrow it could change. So it is a thing we have to continue to monitor, to be prepared to act on, and hopefully we will have nothing to act upon. Please throw some questions. I'm sure somebody's got some.
Well,
He told me to.
I got 4 more minutes.
Actually, 3.5.
But, now, what is this? Confirmed cases, and then there's another term right there.
Presumptive positive. That means that they are either traveled to, been in contact with someone who has been positive. Most of the cases right now are from that, the Biogen company, Biogen employee conference that was last month. They were traveling all over, and they were in that little conference room. Those are most of the ones that account for Massachusetts numbers. So when you hear presumptive positive, that just means the laboratory has not confirmed it yet, but it is pending. So could some of those presumptive positives come back as negative? Yes, of course. It could just be a rhinovirus, which causes the common cold. If they come back as positive, yeah, they could do that too. Could we have a lot more cases that we're just unaware of because we have not tested them? Of course. A lot of us would brush this virus off like we would brush any other virus off. But
And did I hear that they're giving $1.4 million for the,
I'd have to check that number, but as I understand it, the Department of Public Health will kind of divvy that out as necessary. Where it's going, what it's doing, I'm unaware of right now, so I wouldn't be able to give you an educated answer to that question.
okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions from the board? No more drinking Corona?
Only one, that's not all.
Anyone else seriously have any questions? Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you need me to say my name and address?
I'd appreciate it. You may want to take the,
Do you need me to?
yes, I do.
Somebody in TV land probably has the same question, so they should hear it.
Probably. All right.
You gave that whole presentation without touching your face either like that. You see that? Yeah. You could hear.
If you have more than one question, that's fine too.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So my name is Susan Ferreira Emery, and I live at 3 Shore Ave in Abington. And my question is, right before we came in, they canceled the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Boston. And I was wondering if anybody's approached you, or anybody actually, I know you guys probably are in it, about that. And that's my only question.
I didn't know that.
Okay, thank you.
I just got it when I was sitting there.
No.
There you go.
No one's approached me, no one's asked for any recommendation, and I would be very hard pressed to say, let's cancel the parade, because Abington has had no presumptive positives. We've had a few people who were on self-quarantine due to travel restrictions, they've already been cleared. So, business as usual until there's something to act on. It's one of those things where we should not, the correct response is to wait and do nothing until there's actually something to do, which sounds counterintuitive, but
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you very much.
my pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Marty.
Hold on.
Public appointments? None? All right, action, discussion items. Number 1, vote the intention to lay out Belcher Street and Cook Way as public ways and to forward the layout plans and legal descriptions to the planning board.
Mr. Riley is here to speak on behalf of his clients.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn, members of the board. This is a procedure that the town goes through every few years when a new subdivision road has been completed. We haven't had one in a number of years, but this is involving the 2 new roads, Belcher Street and Cook Way, which is part of the Veterans Estate subdivision, which is located on Plymouth Street between Dairy Queen and Summer Street. So the procedure is, obviously it starts as private property. A developer then builds the road, sells the lots, finishes the road, and when the road is done, it is submitted to the town for acceptance as a public way. And this is a multi-step process, and this is basically step 1. I filed the application for the roadway acceptance, and I filed 2 separate applications, one for Cook Way, one for Belcher Street. Because I believe we have to have 2 separate articles at town meeting at the end of the procedure. Your vote tonight is to just start the procedure. Take a vote of your intention to lay out Cook Way and Belcher Street as public ways, And secondly, to refer the application to the planning board for review and comment. So that's all you're doing tonight, which authorizes the planning board then to retain the town's engineer to inspect the roadway, to review the plans, and then the planning board will make a recommendation back to this board in writing. When that recommendation comes back, this board will then have another meeting where you will notify the landowners on the street of your intention to take a vote to lay out the streets and submit it to town meeting for its final vote of approval. So no substantive action tonight, other than the votes for each street of your intention to lay out Cook Way and to refer it to planning board, and then an intention to vote Belcher Street and to refer that application to planning board.
Any questions from the board?
And then who does the warrant article? Would that be the town manager, or would that be the planning board?
Part of the application is a proposed and draft article, which has basically been in the same format as prior ones.
Yep.
Just a different street name. So that paperwork has been submitted, but everything will be reviewed by town council.
And these street names, are they, I think we're naming streets after veterans. Are these both veterans?
Both of them are, Mr. Cook and Mr. Belcher.
Yeah.
That's for the warrant. Any other questions?
I don't know if Rick wants to weigh in on this at all. Do you have any comments, or? just-
No, only that the packet you have, the extensive packet on this issue,
Very extensive package.
is really for your information only. There's nothing there what really influences the, really the more parliamentary procedure of referring it to the planning board. But if you wish to get to bed early tonight and start reading this, I'd recommend it.
The bulk of the package is I have to give you a copy of every deed for every lot on the street. So it's 17 or 18 deeds there.
Can we vote the intention just as for both of them? Belcher?
Yes.
Yes,
That's fine.
I will entertain a motion if anybody wants to make one.
I'll make that motion to lay out Belcher Street and Cook Way as public ways and to forward the layout plans and legal descriptions to the planning board.
Your intention is
Your attention, yeah.
Yes.
I'll second that. Okay, any further discussion? Tim?
No, I got nothing.
All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was quick. All right, let's see. Approved minutes of January 27th, 2020. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of January 27th, 2020.
Was this one, Rick, we had we just didn't have a copy of it, right? That's why we didn't approve it at the last meeting? Okay.
Correct, yes.
That's why you have two.
That's why I got two of them now.
I'll second the motion.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And vote, approve the minutes of February 24th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 24th, 2020 as written.
I'll second that motion.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right. 4, social media policy for town employees. This is something I think that Kevin brought up partly, and we got some, Rick got some emails from other towns, Rick, on policy or.
Correct.
Anybody want to start the discussion?
Yeah, I reached out to Rick about this. He had given me some policies from different towns, I think 3 or 4 different towns. Just something to look at. Not necessarily looking for anything tonight, but if you guys want to look through it, see if it's something that we want to discuss further and put on a future agenda, we can go from there. But just figured it's worth looking at.
What's your intention, Kevin?
Just to look through it. I don't think we have anything on file, and it'd be good to have something, I think. It seems like other towns are doing it. We had, 4 that came through, so.
So
I'm through and just to see, social media is playing a big part in the town. There's a lot of town pages and whatnot, so.
is this like so to protect us from liability type things, or?
Whatever you want to call it, yeah. Just, I think it'd be good just to take a look and see if there's anything we need to do, or.
I think it's good to look at, but I don't, and I could be wrong, I don't think it's going to have much of a bite. I wouldn't want to prevent anybody from, and I still have to read some of these, but preventing anybody from, freedom of speech.
Oh,
or
absolutely.
Whatever, whether they're,
If you read through them, it's pretty informative. It's interesting to see what different towns do and different angles they take. It's just, again, more of, just reaching out, trying to get some information and see if it's something we want to look at.
Can I ask what it is that you distributed to the board? I don't.
Oh,
Okay,
the town's policy that you would send me.
Okay, all right, so
Yeah.
there's nothing
No, just
different that
that.
we need for the minutes.
no surprises.
We don't have it.
No surprise.
No light surprises, right.
No, Rick, what was the one thing you had said we had?
We have a policy, more of an internal administrative policy, but realistically, that's not something that you would try to apply to boards and committees. I think that would be more of a policy for the Board of Selectmen rather than at the administrative level. And as Tom pointed out, enforcement could be difficult, but it never hurts to put out your expectations. But like I said, we internally at the administrative staff level, that's something that we've had for some time. I think Kevin's thinking a little more lofty than that. Is that correct, Kevin? I don't want to.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't hurt to look at it and
Sure.
see what other towns are doing and see if it's something that we'd be interested in here or not. Just, again, it's just an initial, quick dive to see what other towns have and get some information and see if the board wants to look further.
But there's a policy for town employees, correct?
Correct.
But now, aren't elected officials considered town employees?
That's a,
Well, I think legally they're municipal employees, but I don't think that, that's not what this refers to when I talk about employees, because I don't have any authority to make policy for anybody but employees that work under the.
No, I read the policy that you're talking about, and basically for people who work using town,
Sure, Correct.
computers and phones. At one point, the Board of Selectmen, I think it was before my day, had a policy for talking to the press. But I couldn't find that anywhere, so I'm not sure if that was just an in-house thing or something. But I think, and I know that the chiefs wanted to talk on this subject too, but I think in this day and age, we just have to be careful. We also careful about tying people's hands with free speech, but we also have to be careful about making sure that stuff that's discussed in the executive session doesn't creep its way onto online,
well, I
things.
think that's a violation of law.
No.
That's not a violation of policy, that's a violation of law.
Realize that. If you feel strongly about this, I think it's a great thing that maybe we could, maybe you could draw something up, glean from the best, leading things, or do a little subcommittee, or a couple members could just get together and, and then the whole board can decide, we don't want a policy, we do want a policy, or tweak whatever it comes before the board, so. I do think we probably, I haven't had a chance to look at these, so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what they encompass, so I think it's a good idea.
I heard to review what he got us.
Do you want to, maybe we'll all look at it, and the next meeting, we'll discuss whether we want to move forward with
yeah,
maybe a
I think
committee?
that would work, just to look at it and get,
Yeah, because
People's thoughts on
we
it.
haven't had a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
I think that's good, but I told the chief that I'd certainly let him speak, or anyone else that wants to speak, so.
Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. I think, honestly, a lot of this is coming from my department, if not my position, from 2 weeks ago when I saw your board meeting. I was somewhat surprised to see a lot of the reactions in the questioning as to why we had a news channel at the fire stations doing a story on the fire stations themselves. Nobody had approached me prior to the meeting here. Certainly, I think you all have my contact information. If there was a question, I would have happily been happy to explain what was going on. Yes, we have a feasibility study ongoing right now. As you know, I made a presentation to this board about a year and a half ago, which really got the ball rolling. That really was the genesis of getting the funds to begin the feasibility study because of the issues we're having at the fire station. This is not an issue of neglect, structural failure, lack of maintenance whatsoever. This is an issue of we've simply outgrown the buildings. And the feasibility study will, when that is finished, point out whatever that study recommends, and at that point, the town has a decision to make. They can do nothing, they can do something. We'll see where they'll go with that. I believe the photographs that we put out, and I authorized those photographs to go out on social media, on the fire department Facebook account, showing some of the conditions we have. The apparatus physically bumper to bumper, with literally an inch in between, the height restrictions we have. There were some other issues. We have an emergency roof repair ongoing at Station 2 as we speak. That began this morning due to a large rodent that we discovered was living under the roof deck that nobody had an idea what was going on. That was one of the issues causing the water. All those issues have been replaced. The photographs you saw of some of the damaged wall and the paint, it's already been addressed. And immediately after that was addressed, the water began coming in again, and we had not had rain. That is what prompted us to see what the heck is going on in the roof, and we discovered an issue up there that we immediately took care of. These buildings are maintained. There is no structural deficiency. I never said, either on the Facebook account or on the Channel 10 or Channel 5, whatever news media broadcast, that there was never any structural deficiencies that could reduce the value of those buildings if we go to a future sale. I have no idea where that came from. And when I was watching your meeting a couple years ago, it was kind of alluded that I was perhaps showing that. That was simply not true. All the money, if we put into these buildings, and this is what we're trying to come to before we get to that juncture, we're going to put more money into existing buildings that are still simply too small, that we've outgrown, or is that money that we may want to invest into a new facility somewhere else? That's what we're waiting for the feasibility study to show. But at the same time, either way, we're still in those buildings, and we're trying to let the public know these are the issues that we're dealing with. We had a meeting with the fire station building committee the night or two before those photos went out, and I think it was everybody's agreement that, yeah, the public needs to see this. We're trying to get information out. Granted, we're waiting for the feasibility study, but we've invited people to the station. Nobody comes. They're not easy to get to because of the traffic. We're doing some shows on cable just to show, what the issues are. We're not showing you that the building's falling apart. We're trying to show you that we've simply outgrown the building, and we're trying to educate the residents and the taxpayers. This is what the study's for, so that they're not just hit with this and without much time to react. We're trying to educate the public. So some of the negative feedback we got from that, I was a little bit surprised, but that's how this goes, and we're all learning from this, and it's part of educating the community. So because of all that I just said, my real concern is, not that feelings would hurt, that's not it. My real concern is if you're beginning to consider a way to either marginalize what department heads or town employees are able to do just by doing our jobs, especially with public safety. There are times we have to talk to the media. We have impromptu news conferences, whether it's a major event, a fire, an emergency incident, what have you, that the cameras just show up. And if we don't get in front of those cameras and give them the official story, they're going to go on the air either way. They're going to talk to somebody in the street. They're going to talk to somebody who may or may not know really what went on. We want to be able to control that story. And that, I guess, would be a caution to the board that will be a very dangerous and slippery slope to be able to go down. If all of a sudden there was some type of a media restriction where we have to either ask permission or go through some type of a policy before we're able to get information out there, that's dangerous. The nature of our job really doesn't allow for that. So I think I'd like to caution the members on that. if you hamper us on that, that could really affect how we're able to do our jobs. I know certainly the fire department it would, if that helps you at all. But that was one of my main concerns, is I wasn't quite sure where this was going. And to be perfectly honest with you, if anybody had asked me prior to your meeting last time why we had Channel 10 there, they approached me, they saw photographs out there beyond what went on before. There's pictures all over the place that just appear. And they wanted to do one type of a story. We directed that entire story to the real issues, which is, it's a fit issue in the station. Not only for the apparatus, but for the manpower, all of the same issues that we have said before. Those photographs that were out are the same ones we showed you here. It's nothing new. So by me talking to the media that night, I redirected the entire story and probably did damage control for the town.
Chief, I'm going to ask you a question. I didn't see the Channel 5 or Channel 10 interview or whatever. I got the impression from our meeting, I got this impression, that some members believed, and I don't think it's true, believed that you were trying, or the department was trying to promote one station. I didn't get, again, I didn't see it, but I think some of the members got that impression. Do you think that's a valid impression?
We showed both stations at that show, so we're showing both stations. Ultimately, the feasibility study is going to recommend what they recommend, whether it's to invest in trying to put a lot of money into the two existing
Right.
stations, which, to be perfectly honest with you, there's not a lot of land on either one to grow out to what we would need to do. I would be interested in a central facility, but we're still waiting for the feasibility study for
Right,
that.
and the feasibility study will determine that, and that will be presented to the voters, not what you said. And again, I'm not saying that you said it, because I don't think you did. The feasibility, me or you or people that are taxpayers are the ones going to listen to the feasibility study, whether it's repair two buildings, which I think is crazy, and I've been in towns where there should just be one. And again, that's just me. But, you know, the feasibility study and then the vote will be the vote of the people.
Correct.
You know, so I don't know if anybody else has any comments on that, but again, I didn't see the interview. I appreciate you doing it. And you know, and especially for the health and safety of the people that work for you and that work for this town. I think it's really important, and showing that, I think is very important. And it gets on the news, and it doesn't bother me.
And I can't control what they edit, to be honest with you. You know, we say, we met with them for probably 10 minutes per station, and they cut it down to whatever it is they showed for a couple minutes, and, you know, some of the main pieces, we would have preferred to get out, that they edited out. But either way, they came to us. We did not seek them, and there's been two other news agencies that come to me that we simply didn't do, because it would have been the same story. And it's, I don't really think that there's a need for it, because it's going to end the same way. We don't know what the answer is going to be until the feasibility study comes. We're just trying to educate the residents. And again, if there's any questions, please reach out to me, come visit us. I think you have my email, my phone number. Certainly, the town manager can get through to you if needed.
I have one question for you. I didn't see the show either. Now, there was nothing in that show that was any different than the presentation you gave, the things you discussed.
The only thing different would actually show the tower truck backing in, how close it is, but we explained.
You talked about, yeah,
It's
so
just actually
there was
happening.
nothing that anybody, you know, there was no breaking news or any, you know, so it was basically a rehash of what we saw. So, and actually spurred a ton of interest in town because they saw it for the first time, so.
Clarification question that I just want to hit on what Tom said. Last meeting, we were talking about it, the feasibility study, and maybe there wasn't a lot of clarity on it. With the question I think I posed was, are we looking at both stations to see if we can rehab them, or are we just strictly looking for one station? I think Rick had hit on that, it was more geared to just that we're going to go to a central fire station, that they necessarily weren't looking at the other. Are they still looking at the two
We are
buildings?
looking very in-depth at both stations. We've had engineers, we've had HVAC, electrical, we've had site specialists out there, we've had hazardous material studies at both stations, seeing what we have for asbestos. We have a complete report on that for both existing structures. And from that report, they're going to compile the recommendation. They are absolutely looking at both stations.
Got you. And as far as this, what this is, it doesn't spurn from the last meeting. There's a complete separate thing. But I guess the point that I was at the last meeting was we have a feasibility study being done. No one's trying to restrict First Amendment rights or anything like that. More of like, if there's an investigation going on, you're not going to go on and tell them, all right, this is what we got for the investigation. You're going to say, it's being conducted, we'll talk afterwards. That's kind of what I was looking at with this study. The feasibility study's being done, let's let the results come out, and then if it says we need a new station, which I'm sure it's going to, right, that then we go from there. I think that was more of the point of it, but thank you for clarifying the, going to one station or looking at both to rehab them possibly.
Right, and I'll sort of echo what the chief already said. We're all on the board, but we know where to get a hold of him.
Absolutely.
If you've got any questions, and if we think that he's pushing for 1 or pushing for 6, we should call and ask him, or talk to him, or email him. And Chief, I do appreciate you taking your time, and, that...
Can I ask one question about the feasibility study, though? I probably should have asked this before, but now, there is a possibility of them recommending one station, is there the possibility of them recommending 2 new stations, or is that kind of off the table, or?
The issue is, and I know Rick spoke on this somewhat last time, we're extremely limited by sites available in this town. And that's, if you build 2 stations, it's probably going to be more expensive, because now you're doing 2 site works, 2 structures, as opposed to 1. So we're trying to concentrate on one, if it goes to 1 station, just 1 location. To build 2 stations, you've also got to find 2 lots of land. The number 5 Rockland Street, which is Station 2, and 1040 Bedford Street, which is Station 1, we simply don't really have the size available on either lot to add on. And if you begin adding on, and again, I'm speaking prior to this, I'm assuming this is all going to be covered in the feasibility study, and I'm trying to be careful not to tip that, but we just went through this with the high school. One of the main reasons we didn't simply add on to the high school, and that was one of the questions in town, why can't we just add on a wing to the existing high school? Because you have to mitigate the asbestos, and we do have asbestos in my stations. And it's fairly well hidden. However, if you get intrusive into the building, you're going to find it, because it's in the adhesives that hold the floor tiles down, it's in the window frames, it's in some of the really hidden areas of the building. But if you get into opening that building, now you're going to be exposed to it. And we really just don't have a lot of land on either one of those stations. And to be quite frank with you, the locations of both of those stations, due to the traffic and the expansion, that was one of the issues to begin with.
Yeah, it was great back in the day.
In the day, they're great stations. And there's nothing wrong really with the buildings. They were built in 64 and 73. They were modern stations at the time. But the 1964 and the 1973 of Abington are not the same Abington it is now, when we're not the same fire department. They were both built prior to even considering operating an ambulance. They were both built prior to having male and female employees. They were built before computers existed. And with computers, running the cables, fitting the server, the firefighters work literally 2 feet from the main server itself. It should be in a closet somewhere else. I'm not going to reiterate the whole thing. I know you've heard this, but we've simply outgrown the buildings. That's the issue. It's not the structures themselves. They simply don't fit anymore. The apparatus is much larger because we're doing much more varied roles now. And we're not the same town or fire department or fire department employees that we were in 1973 and in 64. And that's what we're running into. The traffic is certainly not the same. I wasn't driving back then, but I can imagine. We all know what the traffic is on 18, and even at 123 and Rockland Street. That's where we're both located. That's the issue.
One other question, are they looking, like a future forecast with the feasibility study too, they're looking at like say a 10-year outlook or further?
Yeah,
So
we're
they'll
looking
be
about
able
20 or
to-
30 years.
Okay,
We
awesome.
want to make sure that there's ample growth on these. There's actually a public, your appointed fire station building committee is tomorrow night at 5. Derek, is that true? Is that in this room? In this room. I actually won't be there. Ironically, my son's playing basketball at the Boston Gardens, so I'm
Good luck.
going to be there. But it's in good hands with the committee that's running it. So they'll be giving an update for that. That's open to the public if anybody wants to come to that. We really haven't had any members of the public beyond firefighters in the committee itself come to these meetings yet. So I'm hoping tomorrow night, maybe the beginning of that. I think half the town's going to be in Boston.
Do you meet on a regular schedule? Is it every Tuesday at 5, every other, or is it just?
I'll defer to the chairman.
Right now, it's sporadic, where everything's on hold until the feasibility study comes through. So we're gonna get an update on the feasibility study, but it's still not completed yet. So after this, we might not have a meeting until maybe the end of the month.
When is the study supposed to be
Hopefully the end of
completed?
this month. The pieces are really coming together. We had a major breakthrough piece that just came through on Friday, and we'll be working on that tomorrow. That's one of the sites. That's really what has been holding it up. We're in the middle, and it should be completed at the end of this week, is a response time survey, which is looking at the 2 existing stations and 3 or 4 other sites around town. 2 sites really only 2 of those sites are valid. But we're looking at all of them. We're looking at what we have now. We're looking at a couple of other sites, and there was one other piece of available town land, but it's really behind Walmart, and it's really not realistic, to be honest with you, because of the response times coming to the northern part of town. We're looking at everything. We're trying.
Right, and that's the charge of the feasibility.
Right. So hopefully that clarifies it. I'm just trying to, give my concern, and I'm sure that the other department heads would have the same concern. If we ever have to get a message out there, I'd caution you to be very careful of trying to marginalize what our public outreach would be, because the media can also be a great asset. Many times, we try to maintain a great relationship with the media. We have our own media. A lot of people look at things on Facebook. We have the cable TV. We've been working with them. And then there's the independent media, just the major networks like that. And all of those have their place. And ultimately, from our standpoint, really, it's about being able to educate the public, or inform the public, whatever the issue may be. So I just caution you to try not to marginalize that, especially for the public safety, because we never know when we're going to have to use that.
Yeah, we just got these right before our meeting, so this is all new to us too. But just a quick look through, I didn't see any recommendations from any of these towns that would restrict department heads from speaking to the media quickly. So I don't think that's on our table, but we'll find out at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So, 5, town manager and subcommittee update on police study. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read a letter that was sent to MRI. I'm going to read that first, and then I'll read the response from MRI, and I'd like to have a little bit of discussion on this, so.
Just for everybody, MRI is the company that we hired to do the police feasibility study.
By way of quick introduction, I am Kevin Damasio. I am not, but one of the selectmen in Abington, Mass. The Board of Selectmen subcommittee that put together the RFP for the general management and operations study of the Abington Police Department consisted of myself and fellow selectman Ken Coyle. This subcommittee is still in place to follow the progress, and feel that it is important that we be included in all correspondence and information that goes between MRI, the town manager, and police management. We are not asking this in an attempt to hinder the study, but rather to ensure that the study is complete, fair, and that all parties are given the opportunity to participate and be heard. Our subcommittee recommended MRI after reading similar police studies and being impressed by the obvious hard work and information gathering that went into those reports. As elected officials representing the residents of Abington, we are prepared to help in any way that we can and would ask for the opportunity to meet with MRI representatives and then touch base monthly until the study is complete. Doing so will help us ensure the residents who voted the funds for the study that the results were obtained through a thorough and unbiased process. We look forward to meeting with you and thank you for taking on this task. And again, there was a response to Mr. Damasio. Municipal Resources, Inc. sent a proposal for this project because we believe the town of Abington was seeking a fair, independent, and impartial review of the Abington Police Department and related operations. Your email implies that our study will be complete and fair only if you participate in the way your email suggests. In my 12 years with the company and the dozens of public safety organizational studies I have led from South Carolina to the Canadian border, I have never received such a request or directive from a governing body or any member thereof. Our study relies on an open and honest flow of communication, documents, and data from the subject organization. What you are suggesting would no doubt interfere with that communication and likely impede the independent review which I know you are seeking. Section 5, deliverables, paragraph E of the RFP stipulates that the consultant reports to the Board of Selectmen through the town manager. Should the Board of Selectmen as a body direct us to proceed in the manner you have suggested in your email, MRI will have to rethink its involvement in this project. I hope you can understand our position. And that was from Alan Gold, President, Chief Operating Officer for MRI. So, Kevin, you want to make, anyone want to make comments on either of the emails, or?
One quick, I don't understand that position. Like, I'm not sure where this is coming from.
Whose position?
MRI's.
Yeah.
Well, I agree.
I don't think Kevin's email was unreasonable, but I think there might be a miscommunication somewhere. Or I'm not comprehending something that they are comprehending.
And again, kind of myself, we did this and we both agreed. That's why we brought it to the board, kind of for the, opinion of the rest of the board.
Because the subcommittees are still in place for this reason, to work, and, I mean, to be honest, our town manager, we want some continuity in case this goes on for a couple of months and we don't know, so, and in the letter, in the email, we specifically state, we don't want to hinder it, we just like to be kept in the loop, basically.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me, too.
The study is could be 6 months. So, and I think that, I agree, I think that there's maybe a wrong message being sent here, and I think it would be clarified if, initially, I was under the impression that we were gonna meet before MRI hit the ground running, like they said in here, and we didn't. And I think that's what we were trying to get across. We got some emails sent to us from you, Rick, and, Ken and I kind of sat down and said, hold on, wait a minute, I think we got off on the wrong foot here. Let's just try to clarify this now. Before it becomes an issue. So we sent this email out, and I don't think in this email, I don't think that we implied or interfered or said anything in particular. Section 5 deliverables, that is mentioned. The Board of Selectmen and town officials is mentioned 12 different times in the RFP that Municipal Resources sent back. So
On purpose.
specifically for that reason. You know what I mean? I don't think that I don't think that we were doing anything particularly wrong here, but we came up with something that we saw might have been an issue. We wanted to take care of it and get rid of, and fix it now, but we got this email back, and before we kind of move forward with anything, we wanted to bring it to the board, and, we want to try to resolve this.
If the board feels that just eliminate the subcommittee and let them do what they want, that's fine too, but I think it has to be a board decision as to what.
Has there been any other communications between you, the subcommittee, and MRI since the emails?
This is the only communication that we got, that we've received from NRI, this one email.
Rick, have they communicated with you regarding these emails?
I have not had any conversation since this email either.
Can we invite them in to speak to the full board, just to clarify, without upsetting them?
Yeah.
We're going through
They don't want to meet with the two of us, imagine how they're going to want to meet with the five of us.
yeah, I think this just needs to be clarified. I think if,
Sometimes tonality can't be read over email. and-
yeah, I know, Rick, I know you had mentioned before that you would reach out to them before the study, and then you seem to have talking with them, so I think it might be.
Yes, I did. I spoke to them based upon them calling me to make sure that they were clear on the scope. and to make sure they were going to get the information they needed to do their study. I don't recall any conversation about some sort of grand kickoff, and I will say that perhaps Mr. DiMaggio didn't understand that when he stated that essentially that the involvement of himself and anyone else without that, would render this not to be fair and impartial. That's exactly what you said. So I would say if I'm a consultant and I read that, I'd say, I'm sorry, but I've been doing this a long time, and I don't need somebody who's not a professional and an expert to tell me how to do my job. I'm telling you how he read that clearly from his response. Quite frankly, I don't think others would take the same thing from that. So if you'd like to make a request to meet with somebody, we'll be happy to pass that along. Keep in mind that anytime they meet with somebody, that's money. You know, these people don't work for free. They put together their response to the scope based upon the scope that you gentlemen developed.
And to hit
So they're
back
not
on what you
making
were
up the
saying,
scope. They're doing the scope that you
You
requested.
had said that they had reached out to discuss the scope. I don't think that's at your discretion. I don't know how that ever
No,
came
the
about. I mean,
scope is what's the
that's
scope that you
subcommittee
developed.
is here
That's what the scope is.
created
okay?
for that, so it's communications to the Board of Selectmen through the town manager.
I believe the subcommittee did do the scope. So what communication is necessary to confirm the scope? The scope is the scope that you developed. So I'm not sure what it is that you think has to be done to clarify the scope.
I was under the
That's all.
impression that they were gonna come in and meet with all of us. And then the next thing I know is they're already meeting with people. I thought their first step was to meet with us.
Well, that's fine, but that's not part of what was requested in the scope. If you want to do
Discuss
that,
it at a meeting, though. It was an issue that we discussed.
I think.
I'm just telling you what's in the scope.
I mean, I
didn't
think
put
I would-
together the scope. You
I
put
think
together the scope.
I think, because again, we're not looking for them to walk away from this. We saw something and we brought it to the attention and we're trying to resolve this here. I think a good way is, Rick, you've already been talking with them. I think maybe if
I
you
did that, I
draft
did
up
that
an-
once, yes.
you draft up an email to them, kind of explaining what's happened here and that, listen, there is a subcommittee, you know, they do want to meet, we should sit down and meet. This isn't trying to make it any unfair process. And maybe we can go from there, maybe if you
I
do
will
a
be
draft
happy to
email.
maybe set up a phone call with you, me, and Mr. Gold to start with. That may be helpful.
I mean, I'd leave it up to the board.
Before I send emails and you send emails, a conversation may be more helpful.
Yeah,
And you can take it
emails,
from
I think,
there.
is what got us in this miscommunication,
right.
so I think a phone
That
call
would be fine.
And Kevin, with you included in
Ken.
in the
and
subcommittee.
Well, I would say
I would
the problem is that a phone conversation with a subcommittee, that has to be posted. That is a meeting.
That's fine.
That's fine.
So I'm happy to do that. I just want to make sure, rather than just have either Mr. DiMaggio, me speak to the president, or if you want, it's up to you. Either way, I just want to make sure I follow the correct procedure, so we're not in an open meeting violation.
Yeah, and we were both in this email, myself and Ken, so I think depending on what the board wants to do, but I would say the subcommittee, we can post it, and that's fine, however.
Ken, how do you feel about that?
I'm kind of pissed at their response, but, you know, I mean, we were very polite in their email to them, and it says they report to the Board of Selectmen through the town manager, that's fine. But the town manager is not going to be here forever. You know, there has to be some continuity. I don't know how long the state's going to be, but I mean, there has to be some continuity, you know, because if Rick...
There will be a
no
town manager.
No offense to you, but, and I hope you stay on through the budget process, but I mean, Rick could find a job next week and be gone, and then who's he going to report to? He's going to report to the subcommittee, and we won't know squat.
And he doesn't want to talk to us.
I would hope, and
That's what I
again,
get from this.
there's going to be somebody who's the town manager, whether it's acting, interim, or whatever. So
But wouldn't
this is a bureaucratic process at some
the
level.
Board of Selectmen and the residents of town like to have some continuity to the program?
I'm happy to do whatever you'd like. I just want to make sure that, you know, I understand where he's coming from. You know, I completely understand where he's coming from.
What I'm going to suggest, and I'll have the board certainly vote on it, but, is that we have a conversation, you, Ken, Kevin, Rick.
Sure.
Mr. Gold, have that conversation about what we expect, what they may have misunderstood or not misunderstood in the email, and then I'm going to ask you guys to report back to us. That would be my suggestion. And if we have to post a public meeting, then that's what we'll do, we'll post a public meeting. And, you know, if the
Right.
public wants to be, yeah, I know that's sort of difficult, and the public wants to be here to, whatever.
Well, therein lies the problem, as we learned, which I wasn't aware of during the legal review process, that a subcommittee of the board that's authorized by the board, effectively, that has to be posted also. So to what extent, so we're going to have to organize this carefully to make sure we don't violate the open meeting law. But I'll be happy to work with Kevin and Ken to organize that.
And that's what I'd ask you guys to do, so.
Glad we didn't send the original draft of the letter. Gee.
Do you need a motion of some sort, or?
I don't think we need a motion, but I'd just like the board, the whole board to be in agreement. I'm in agreement with that. Jim, are you?
I'm in agreement with that.
Ken and Kevin are, and Tim?
Yes.
Okay, I needed, the head shaking won't work for me. I needed the yes. Thank you.
Sorry, your eyes
Sorry.
not good?
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
They're not good at all. I mean, we did have people that paid
But
for.
actually, part of the agenda is
taxpayers.
the town manager, do you have an update on it at all? Anything?
No, actually, Kevin asked for this to be put on the agenda. I don't have anything. I haven't had any communication since before this.
Have you heard anything, or have they been talking to the department, heads or department?
Again, it's hands off. I just
Right.
know they've been down to the station. I'm not sure who, I assume they've spoken to the command staff, but beyond that, I don't
And
know.
I agree with the hands off, that's what we put in the letter. We can't, just,
Right.
we don't want to hinder you, we don't want to we just want to be in the loop.
So just for an update, that they have gone to the, because I think last time we met, they hadn't came into town yet, so they have gone to the station,
They were scheduled to do so on February 26th, I believe. But
okay, and
I
then
have not verified whether they have or they're not. Again, this
outside of
is
that, they haven't been any further communication or anything?
not with me. I don't know if they've had any communication with Dave, the staff, or anybody else. I don't know that.
All set?
Yes.
Okay, we're all set, Rick?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, 6, vote to approve use article and pawnbroker license renewals pending receipt of necessary paperwork, satisfactory inspection, and up-to-date due taxes.
Because there any inspectional services, or any issues with them, or are they contacted for these at all, or?
The inspectional services are directed to go out and look at all these licensees.
And we have nothing in our file, so everything must have been, no news is good news, right?
There's no bad news. I'll put it that
No
way.
bad
No
news.
bad, okay.
Taxes are all up to date?
Well, they don't get their license until that's verified through the treasurer collector.
And these are businesses that have been in town for a while. Electric Planet is fairly new, but they were there before for years, so I will make a recommendation to, if it's all right with the board, to approve the use article and pawnbroker license renewals pending receipt of all paperwork, satisfactory inspections, and up-to-date taxes for Designer Diva, 171 Brockton Ave, Electric Planet, 1347 Washington Street, and ABC Tech Squad, 201 North Quincy Street.
I will second that motion.
Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. All right. Motion to appoint James Papone to Housing Authority. Is James here?
No.
No?
He's actually on there now, but he's seeking to be appointed as a different category because of, there was a resignation, and a reorganization, and, I'm sorry, I didn't have that in front of me.
It's kind of a weird makeup of the committee.
Yeah.
It used to be.
Yeah, he's going from a regular member to a tenant seat. So he's already a member of the authority.
Is he, on here it hasn't listed as a tenant seat, is he going?
Well, this is what this
result.
is what this would achieve.
Okay.
If you so vote, this last page of the packet is what would result. And that's what the Housing Authority is seeking to
Right.
accomplish.
I think
What is the difference between a tenant seat and elected?
there's 3 elected, I think there's 3 elected seats. One is appointed by whoever the governor is at the time, gets to appointment, then one is a tenant seat that basically hit you if you live in one of the
Oh, okay, I
housing
get
authority
that.
properties. You get a preference to be on there. And Joe, I know Joe has been a good member of the board. He's been on there for a little while, so.
So this would open up an elected seat.
I think there's there's
Yes.
one seat on the
That is
ballot, I
correct,
think.
yes.
Open seat, yeah.
So that would be, which one would he be up for re-election? Would that kick in anything with our election coming up? Or?
Yeah, there's one position on this.
2023.
On this ballot, yes. And it's convoluted as you think, and even more. Leanne needed some advice, not just from town council, but from the election division to sort through this.
It's been a little
Because
confusing for a couple of years now.
Because the legislation that governs this is not clear on vacancies and
Because
other.
this whole tenant seat is something new. The governor's appointment has been on for years, but the tenant
Correct.
seat thing is kind of a new thing.
So he's stepping down from one seat and he's going after the tenant seat. Okay.
Yes, he's seeking that because it makes it clearer as to the election cycle.
Are they 3-year terms, do you know? The elected seats?
Yes. Yes.
So that'd be coming up
The elected
next
seats.
year, 2021.
2021 from Melanie.
I think there's actually a race for this seat in this year's election.
Is there?
Yes. I'm fairly certain.
Right. So as you can see, the recommendation from the Housing Authority would be for Mr. Paponi to be appointed through April of 2023.
I would make a motion that we appoint James Papone to the tenant seat until April 2023,
I'll second that.
the Housing Authority.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Rick, this has certainly gone past that half an hour.
I'm going to keep it very simple. As you know, and I certainly hope that you grant me your indulgences, I have, as you know, little or no support at the moment, so some of these, I do not have a formal report. The only thing I will tell you is that this week, I am meeting with some of our financial officials in the school administration, hopefully to really get close to 95%, if not more, a consensus on where to go with this budget process. I know I've previously pointed out some of the challenges, opportunities, thank goodness, with additional Chapter 78, problems with additional costs to recycling, and some other specific points that I brought up, health insurance, if there were new positions added in the school department. So those are the key factors. So hopefully this week will go a long way towards getting our arms around that. The Finance Committee meets Wednesday, and then again on Saturday with the school department. At that point, that will be the end of their meetings with departments. So I think to the extent that in their first meeting in April, that the finance team can present them something that's hopefully will be 95 or more % complete. That's our goal. So hopefully we can accomplish that this week. We try to make the finance committee's job easy. Not like the old days.
As we go through the process on the budget, is there, are we still looking at town planner?
Yes.
It's still in the...
Again, we have to do some work to get there, but that is, right now, that is part of the problem. I had a nice conversation with the finance committee about that on this past Wednesday night.
Can I ask a question on the trash? I know we're concerned about the recycling cost. Is there a cap in the contract, or that it can basically, whatever the going rate is, it can just go up? And how long of a contract do we have left?
Yeah, 1 year left. It's a
year.
direct pass-through. So it's not, there's no contracted amount, but it's just a pass-through of the disposal cost.
Okay.
And that's pretty much everywhere now, because contractors would simply have to walk away from contracts. There'd be no way they could be solvent. I won't review the options I mentioned at the last meeting.
Thank you.
Hypothetically.
Is that something that you think is going to happen in this year's budget?
What's that, Ken? I'm sorry. What?
you talked about an underride or an override?
No,
or-
we're incorporating it in,
For this year?
yeah. That's a big policy decision for your unpaid volunteers up there for the future.
If everybody's okay with the town manager, I just want to report, I had a meeting with the town manager search committee tonight. They feel confident, I think they're final 2 interviews tonight, they feel confident that they're going to have some recommendations for our board. So I don't know how the board wants to handle it. They kind of want to know how we want to handle it. Do we want to, there's a whole different scenarios. We could have a special meeting just for that. We could meet, have a special meeting and ask them questions, or we could have the, I was kind of pushing them, they liked the idea, but what we did at the last time was have a meet and greet for anybody in town that wants to come and meet the finalists. You know, we could have that, and that way, we would probably have to do less questioning, because we could ask them questions at that. The thing you can do when you meet and greet, and if you recall, we had the 3 finalists last time at the senior center. We invited all department heads, everybody and residents to come, and they all got to talk, and then you got to ask them questions up there while they were up there, or they would come to your table and answer questions. The good thing about that is, when the candidates come before the town manager search committee, and this committee, you have to, not by law, but just by, not get yourself in trouble, you have to ask the same question to all 3 of them. That does not have to be the case, yes, to be fair, because you don't want it to come back to haunt you. Now, when you have a meet and greet with people, you know, you could go up and say, you know, you know, I see on your resume you left after, 2 years, you can ask them, but you can't do that on TV. It's not fair to ask one candidate those kinds of questions. So that's a good thing for everybody in town to meet them, but it's also a good thing for us, because then we get a chance to, because I would propose that they give us the names of the finalists, we get their resumes, and then after this meet and greet, we bring them to a meeting, ask them whatever questions we feel as a board to ask them, and then make the decision either at that meeting or, another meeting. But we also don't want to drag it on too long.
No, we don't.
When will they, did they say when they'd have?
They could have a recommendation for us as early as tonight. And they're required to give us a minimum of 3. They could give us more, but they're required to give us a minimum, and they're not ranked, they just.
My question would be, if they were to do it this week, could we maybe set something up? Would it be possible to have something on like a Saturday, like 2 Saturdays from now, and that way the meet and greet's on a Saturday if it works, and then our meeting's on that following Monday?
That's kind of what the thoughts were.
Time is kind of
The only thing that's tough about that is you have the finalists, we had the hardest time getting, we had 3 finalists, all their schedules to, and one person I think that they're going to make a finalist is from out of state. So it'll be kind of hard, but, we can give them the word tonight and just say, let's make it happen, And once you announce, once we get the email or the letter, and I know that Rick has asked to be on the agenda for the next meeting, Rick Smith, but once those names come out to us, they have to inform them, because you don't want to be announced as a finalist, and the people the town you work for don't know that, so that, we have to let them know as soon as we know, so. I would prefer to meet with these people. It was a great thing, and I will tell you, a lot of residents showed up, and they just listened to what they had to say, and it's a good thing for us, because you can watch how people interact. These candidates may interact differently with a resident as they do an elected official, and it's kind of neat to watch that. And I will tell you, we had a pretty crowded house, and Rick probably remembers this, but when Rick was appointed, I'll remind you again, I didn't vote for Rick, but anyways, we had a crowd, I'm sorry, I can't.
I wish you had more support.
We had a crowded house, and a lot of people had gone, a lot of citizens, residents had gone to the meeting, and they were kind of rooting for different people. It was kind of neat, why didn't you vote for this person? I thought I liked them a lot, so.
Would this be something we would do, like, at the senior center, or would it be like a high
We
school
think at the senior
thing?
center, it's kind of low-key, and it's kind of nice.
Big enough.
We had some water and some snacks, and they all got up and talked for 3 or 4 minutes, and then they kind of just mingled, and it was really neat. It was a great thing. It actually got some press, too.
I'm not a big fan of that, but, it's what the board wants, so, I mean, whatever the board decides.
I mean, it wouldn't
okay,
be,
but-
it wouldn't be like a form, if you will, they're just gonna be in there.
They get in there, and
Mingling
they
and.
usually just, and they would look, the town committee, search committee was looking for some direction if they want us, or I could do it as liaison, and one of them to set this up.
I would
That's
think
up to-
if they're gonna have finalists, would they wanna see if those finalists could come in on a certain, I mean, have
That's
them
what,
set it up and
that's what the
then,
plan is, they just have the finalists there.
yeah,
The ones that are gonna come before us.
yeah, I would,
So they had a meet, and I wasn't involved last
Yeah.
time, they had a meet and greet, all, whatever candidates were there.
The three finalists, you know, Rick was there, I don't know if you have any comment from this, or you
And then-
remember back that far.
A little bit
But,
awkward,
But it's they talked for 3 or 4 minutes and just said why they'd like to be the town manager, and then people could, not many people asked them questions point blank, but they would come around and go up to him and say, nice to meet you, and, you know, Rick went around to the tables and met everybody and answered any questions they might have. Because to be honest
And
with you,
then, after
that, they would come at our meeting, not directly after that, but at some point
Right.
after that. And I think that gives us a little bit of, because all we can do is look at their resume and ask them maybe one question each, right?
no.
You know, I mean,
necessarily.
okay, 2 questions each, or whatever you want to do. So, I mean, you're not going to ask the group more than 10 questions, 2 questions each. So,
I mean, is it, our next meeting is, do we have our?
23rd.
23rd? I mean, you wanna look at, seeing if that's feasible to do? If the senior center's open, is that too?
they're looking for direction on how we want to do it. I mean, we could just say, no, we don't want to have the meet and greet, let's just bring them all in. The thing that scares me is if you bring everybody in, and let's say someone from the audience wants to ask them a question, then what do? We're all for, but you have to be fair to them, so they have to ask the same question to everybody. You run into issues when you're interviewing
I think
people.
it's a good way for the town to be able to go, and if they want to or not, and if
But
it's.
Ken, if we have them in again to interview,
Mhm.
again, is the public gonna be able to ask them questions then too?
That's
I don't think-
that's up to you, you're the chairman.
I mean, I wouldn't want the public asking questions, I mean, we're doing the interview process. as far
Exactly,
as I'm concerned, but-
then you kind of defeating what you're saying. So if you have this meet and greet, then all the residents can ask them whatever questions they want.
Yeah. But if not, and we interview them,
Yeah.
you know, and we ask them the questions, and I would probably prevent the public from asking them questions.
Exactly.
Because it's our job to,
So this is the chance for the public to ask these candidates, to ask
Again, whatever-
the next town manager, because one of them, more than likely, is going to be the next town manager. Questions.
whatever the board prefers, you know, but we've got to move.
I think it's good transparency. It lets the town talk to them, and it doesn't interfere with whatever questions we may want to ask, and it gives a separate venue. It's not, you know, I think that's,
It might even open up the window, like, oh,
And
I
we
can't
get time.
believe, you know, they said something in passing, you overheard, it's like, well, then you could ask that question, to all the candidates. It might bring up an issue that,
Again, however the board
We'll
feels.
hear from
do we
people
want to see
between,
if,
too.
do we want to see if they're, if the senior
I received,
center,
after that meet and greet, I received a lot of emails saying, please vote for this person.
Yeah.
do we want to see if they're available, and if the senior center is
you?
available on like a Saturday 21st, because our meeting would be Monday the 23rd.
Do you want me to go to the town manager search committee and work with them to try to have a
I would
meet
say
and greet?
yes.
That's all right.
I would, I mean, does the board want a meet and greet?
I think it's good for the town.
Jim?
I'm not gonna be here.
It's
That wasn't a question.
Do you want the town?
I would want to meet and greet like
You would,
Ken
Tim?
suggests.
I would.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's fine, if that's the board's wish, then.
Will we need to post that as a meeting?
We probably should.
Yes, yeah.
Would it be recorded or anything, the Abington can, for people who can't make it?
That's probably not a bad idea.
There's
Sure
a
we
lot of
can
people that might not be able to make
Yeah,
it,
it'd be very-
if it's on a Saturday with sports, and just something so it can,
If we do it the 21st, keep in mind that's school vacation week. A lot of people travel.
When?
no, March 21st.
Oh, I just said April.
No.
No, sooner
No,
rather
we,
than-
I mean,
I mean, it's the 23rd, he said.
I thought you said April.
I mean,
My
yeah.
apologies.
I'll work with the town manager search committee to try to find a date for the, however many candidates they have that works for them.
Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
when we did it, it was during the middle of the week.
Right.
But, I mean, weekends, if people are coming from out of state, weekends might work.
Okay. I think that's
And
fine.
then, and we'll also reach out to Kevin Tachi to see if he can film it, at least the portion where they talk and
I think that'd be
introduce
good.
themselves.
Yeah, at least the intros, people who can't make it
Yeah.
could see that, or watch it on TV. I think that'd be great.
I'll let
Okay.
the search committee know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Rick, the treasurer do anything on the things that we met.
Investment policy, no, not yet. She has not made a recommendation yet. No.
Huh?
She has not made a recommendation
Oh, okay.
yet to bring somebody forward.
Just keep me in the loop with emails.
Any other questions for Rick or anything, or?
I'll send you pictures.
You just had the budget on your town
That was
report,
it,
right?
yes. That was it. You want to encourage me to say more, Mr. Chairman?
No?
Can we make sure that the phone lines are down on Monday nights now so that he can't phone in?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll call Kevin, I'll call my buddy Kevin.
The noises he was making.
I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.